be for the retake or retake study?
Retake.
Yeah, you can retake tests after school during that
What about
end of the day
restudy?
stuff. For studying, you'd have to wait till the 8th graders are gone, but yeah. So you'd have to stay. You'd start like at 10 to 3 or something, and it can't be on a Wednesday, because that's when they have faculty meetings. Okay? What did Paul Revere say when he finished his famous writing?
I'm done writing.
Whoa!
You said it's get a horse to slow down.
Tough audience.
Wait, was it bold?
I'll let it make sense.
Why is the Prince of Wales like a cloudy day? Because he's likely to rain.
Oh, I get it.
Like the other version of rain.
Likely to rain.
Where?
Outside.
Like,
Why does it have to be wet? Why does it have to be whales?
yeah, I know. It's mine. I'll just go home.
This is Prince Charles.
Can they take me
Yeah, but
around?
does it?
He's the one next.
There's a point
The garbage truck.
Yeah, but Prince Charles is likely to rain.
Anna.
Queen Elizabeth's gonna what?
And like the garbage truck people, they stand on the
Die
back and then they
eventually,
just
right?
like, I want to be that to them so
So he's likely to
house, so I
rain.
was like, jump off.
I was like, I'm gonna jump off.
I could look like one of them.
You have to explain it, it takes out from it, right? So what period are we studying?
The president rebuilt the South.
Oh, before I forget, I need to get these out to you. Because we have our first one, on Thursday.
First
The
one.
easiest one. The easiest one is on Thursday.
No.
Oh my god. No, I'm failing this. No, I can't even remember.
That's all the presidents on one page.
In the back. This will be
I know
fun.
like 3.
Oh, Joe Biden. Bella Joe Biden's on there.
Good. All the Trump supporters are covered.
Hey, it's not official.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's not.
Yellow people
They
read
haven't
the
second
paper.
counted.
It is literally being said in the court right now.
I know. I'm going to court now.
Sorry.
Bella. He is old. He won't be that bad.
He'll be done in a couple days.
All right. Are they the first 5?
Okay, so Thursday, we'll take the first 5. So you're going to say, all you do is you take out a sheet of paper and you'll say, George Washington, John
can do
Adams,
one.
Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe.
I can do one of them. I'm very proud of you. Lily, I can do the first one. Isn't it like James Washington or something? What? Isn't the first one like general?
Does everybody understand?
Right? Yes.
So Thursday, you need to know the first 5 presidents.
George Washington.
Now the next president's quiz, okay, after Thursday, the next one, you'll know the first 10 presidents.
Oh God.
Okay? Then the next one, you'll know the first 15 presidents. And then the first 20. Then the first 25. Then the first 30. Then the first 35. Then the first 40. Then the first 45. We'll probably just go to 46.
I bet like the 7th grade.
Probably they go to 46. Oh, let's go 49. Should we go to 49?
I bet some 7th graders like 30.
No, there's only 46 presidents.
The presidents
So, take out your planner.
I'm just like Danny, we're gonna have a lot.
Take out your planner.
Why are they lying so
Thank you for those that are with me. Take out your planner. Write down President's Quiz for Thursday. You can also write this assignment. Okay, read 558 to 563. slave
quick. Good.
for 563 and do at least 3 questions.
No, Bella.
On
So did Kenzie.
How many are
563.
Yes. What?
You're
crying.
You took them down?
Yes.
Joe Biden.
No, it was like yesterday.
Really?
No, on Madison. She said, I'm taking it down.
What?
No.
How many are we going to for the?
Well, if I have to change it back, we'll change it back.
How many are we going to on the quiz?
5. Oh. 5? Wait, what are the pages? 50, 55?
No, and like all my neighbors did too.
That was so funny. What does the board say?
It says social studies for 20.
1, 5, 8,
5, 6, 3. 6, 3.
5, 5,
5,
5, 8,
Republican,
5,
not
6, 3.
I don't give a Oh no, that's because that's because I don't know. That's because we after back and to the Democrats.
No, Bella. Like 5 people in my neighborhood.
They changed it
And they took them down real quick. They're not up anymore. And like the Kraken's down there.
Oh, they took
I've never seen
real
it.
fast.
Huh?
George County Shea Bush.
Oh really? It's like a giant car one time that's not long before they have a giant tree. Like a flag.
What is non-federal?
And that
Yeah,
thing
what's
going off
what's
all
non-federal?
like you see that thing goes all night. It's so annoying. They hung slightly onto the meeting. Like, oh my gosh.
I know, but every
George Washington.
Yeah.
He's really old.
oh my gosh.
I thought George Washington was Republican, but never mind.
Now, we got that covered. Tell me, then, what's this time period called? We're studying? Greta? Called Reconstruction. Remember, there were 5 problems they had to deal with. Who remembers the 5 problems?
Race relations, rebuilding the South economy, the Southern Saviors.
Let's see if I have them on my notes.
Wait, Mr. Hale, do we need to write down the vice presidents too on the quiz?
No.
Thank you.
I can't even remember any of
Huh?
I was looking at
Anyway, no, actually,
Never. That's like extra homework.
oh no, Ryder, they're all, oh no, he didn't win, they're going to court now.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Those nuts.
What do you think he dead people
Okay, but we all go into business.
the vice president.
Biden said
He
Yeah.
won.
He's
Yeah.
the first woman president. I mean,
What are you
vice
just gonna
president.
go listen to your country?
You want to
Only said that you can speak first.
Especially once the virus
So you might as well just move to Canada.
I know, right?
Like you're always like,
Always like down the border.
Oh, we actually have some talking going on. Wow. Now, if we could just talk about this,
Alright. Yes, I do.
that'd be awesome. Now, so they got to deal with freedom of the slaves, race relations once they're free, what to do with the Confederates, how to reunite the southern states, and then how you're going to rebuild the South. All of those problems have to be dealt with. And there's 2 different philosophies. Okay? What are the 2 philosophies? That means how they should be dealt with. You have Lincoln's philosophy, and Lincoln tends to be like Mr. Hale. This is his philosophy. Leniency. what does leniency mean?
Hannibal. Hannibal, the past that attack. Italy. Hannibal had that attack with Romans.
So you have the Lincoln, the president's plan. And then you have Congress's plan. And who's controlling Congress? Congress is controlled by a group of Republicans that were called the Radical Republicans. Remember our line of political philosophy over here? Where are the Republicans on the line? They're on the right side. So they're way towards the right side. Some people would say the current administration, so President Biden, or President-elect Biden, actually follows through, and it's going to be almost virtually impossible to challenge that election, even if there was some illegal activities going on. The chances of President Trump winning this election because of it are slim and none. Okay? That's why I put Biden on this sheet. But they would say Biden is where on the line? He's more to the way left, okay? When we said most people are where?
Middle.
Most people are here in the middle. But we've somehow lost the middle now. And people are pressing to the sides, and when you press to the sides, it's harder to what? Hard to agree on things, okay? Now this was the problem right after, so this isn't a new thing. Our current situation in our country where we have this great division. This isn't a new thing, okay? Reconstruction is the same. Because of different views of how they should handle this. Just like, there's different views of how COVID should be handled. There's different views of how taxes should be handled. So this is different views of how the Reconstruction should be handled. In other words, different views of how you're going to deal with those 5 problems. Lincoln says leniency. His plan became known as the 10% plan. Okay? Congress's plan, the Radical Republicans, is punishment. Opposites. Leniency means you do what? Leniency is based on this. Forgiveness and mercy. Mercy meant, what's our definition of mercy? Same as religion class, what's our definition of mercy?
Getting something you don't deserve.
No, that's grace. What's mercy? You don't get. What's mercy? You don't get
What you deserve.
what you deserve. So, in this case, what do all the Confederates deserve? They deserve death because they have committed what? Treason. That's what they deserve legally, okay? Legally, there could be a strong argument that all the Confederates deserve death, and at least what? If not death, at least what? Prison. Okay? But Lincoln wanted mercy because he said, we need to have this wound. Basically, there's a huge wound in our country. And the way you heal wounds is how? Time heals them, yeah. But before you, so if you get a cut, what do? You clean it out, you bandage it, you cover it. Because if you don't, what happens?
It'll get infected.
It'll get infected and a wound will get worse. So that's why Lincoln, the wound of our country, he wanted to heal it quickly. He wanted to offer mercy and forgiveness. And legal forgiveness for something is called what? You legally forgive. It doesn't mean they weren't guilty, it just means you've legally forgiven them. They're not going to face the consequences of what they would have. Okay? Pardon. So a pardon is legal forgiveness. So if you pardon somebody, they're not going to face the consequences. So Lincoln argued we need to pardon these people. In fact, if you do a whole group, what's it called? You know what a whole group, if you legally forgive a whole group? There's another term for that. That's called amnesty. Okay? Amnesty. So, his view, lenient. Let's get them back in quickly. Let's get these other states back. Let's forgive them. Let's heal. Okay? Congress is the opposite. They say what? Who started this war? They say they started it. They left the Union. They should have to pay. We want to make sure that this never happens again. So we need to make it difficult for them so the next time they think about states' rights, they're going to what? They're going to hesitate and say, well, I don't want this punishment, so I'm not going to do it. So very opposite views of how you should deal with it. Okay? The 10% plan said as soon as 10% of a state's population took an oath of allegiance to the Union and decided to outlaw slavery, they could get back in. That means how many people in here? 10%. How many people have to agree to?
Where's my calculator?
How many we got in here?
You gotta divide 19 by 10, right?
No, 8.
There's 18 of you.
Oh,
So how many of you would have to agree?
8. 3. No. 2.
Only 2 of you would have to agree. So if we were like a southern state, only 2 of you, that means 18 or 16 of you could what? Disagree and not want to be a part of it. But only 2, and they could get back in. You can see how that's what? That's lenient. Very lenient. He's going to get them back in quick. And the problem was what happened?
That other 90% is going to.
Yeah, but what happened here? Lincoln went to the theater.
Oh, no.
Somebody shot him. Assassinated him. Killed him. Lincoln, what made Lincoln so successful is that he could work with anybody. Because that's what a politician does. A politician works. His worst, one of his worst enemies, he made him the chief of the Department of the War. His worst enemy. And all his friends were saying, you can't appoint him. He doesn't like you. And Lincoln said, well, he's the best person for the job. So it's not about whether he likes me, it's about what his qualifications are. So Lincoln could work with anybody. That was his gift. So chances are, under Lincoln, Reconstruction would have went what?
Well.
Would have went well. Would have went a lot faster. Because Lincoln knew how to work out. Okay? Now, when he died, who becomes president?
The vice president.
The vice president becomes president, Andrew Johnson. And you know what Andrew Johnson's biggest problem was?
He has 2 vice presidents.
This is Johnson's biggest problem. He was stubborn. Stubborn means what? He's set in your ways. This is the way he's going to be. And so who's he going to butt heads with?
Everyone else.
He's going to butt heads with the radical Republicans. Instead of compromising and working out deals, okay, it leads to conflict. Because originally he wanted to continue Lincoln's plan. But he wasn't very popular, as popular as Lincoln. And one of the reasons was because he was actually a Southerner. He was from Tennessee. His state that he grew up in had done what during the war? Seceded. Okay, they seceded. They left the Union. But he didn't go with his state. He stayed in the Union as the vice president. But you can see how all these radical Republicans said he's going to favor who? Johnson's going to favor who? They thought, because he was from the South, so he's going to favor what? The South. So that's the problem. Let's see if you guys can come up with a plan. You're 4, you guys are a group. Okay.
This was under
Treat yourself.
You 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there. You 4. Okay. You 4. You 4 be group. You're with them.
I thought Ben was benching business.
No, he said no. He said you 4.
You 5. So what's your plan? Your plan is you have to deal with what? Right here. How are you going to solve these problems? And you have to decide what? You have to decide which viewpoint are you taking. Are you going to be lenient? Or are you going to be hard? Or somewhere in the middle?
I'd say we say. What's
Daddy's in town. You guys are here. You 5 and that's First of all, wait a second, let's stop for a timeout second, okay? This first one, what's that going to require?
Hard work. That's going to require punishment.
You have to change what?
The law.
And what's our supreme law?
Oh, your punishment.
Constitution. So you got to have a what? So if you're going to free all the slaves, there's going to need to be an amendment. Because right now, what slaves are free? Only ones that have been in rebellion. And there were many people that didn't believe that Lincoln had the power to do that. So the only way you could prevent that being challenged in the courts is to do what? Make an amendment. So for this one, you have to make an amendment. What number will it be?
27.
don't know.
I think you'll want it to get rid of it in 2 weeks.
It's not the 24th Amendment.
I know what to do. I know what you do. I know how to do it. High tax on slaves. That way they'll have to get rid of them. Otherwise they'll end up paying more money than they gain.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Then they'll get rid of them on their, out of their own free will.
Punishment.
Make everybody watch it.
If people like Greta for president,
We're all having it on
Yes. And in jail, they don't have to eat food.
What is wrong with you? Why? What is wrong with you?
No, we told him to come and join us.
Or whatever.
Okay, so how do I rebuild the
It means that like
Different color skins.
yeah.
Well, if you are treating other people bad, number one, number one, freedom for slaves.
the 10 Commandments?
The 14th Amendment.
They should be put in jail.
Different places together. Slowly easing together.
Imagine living in this house.
Easing together at a young age. Because like, it's like if you get a kitten and eventually they'll grow up and they'll be good friends. If you just get an old dog and an old cat, they'll be enemies. So be easing together at a young age. They'll become friends.
My brain's like rolling. There's a turn in, but that was like my
Hey.
face.
Which people are the different animals? What do you refer to?
I have no idea.
The mean ones are the cats.
So what you're saying is we gotta get rid of the old people and just have
Okay,
just be a bunch of babies that we like.
Is that all you have to do?
No, we just influence
Okay,
them.
Confederate.
Just send the people that vote.
So what do we do for race relations? Race relations.
who's writing
How
down
are
the
people
plan?
going to react? How are we going to get them to react positively to slave trade? And actually, guilty.
Somebody writing the plan down?
Yeah.
So, what do you
So what have you decided so far?
For the first one, freedom of president.
I think that we should find a
13th Amendment?
compromise and
13.
figure out.
Oh, 13.
That'll make it good. Yeah, orange juice and bacon, and you'll all be happy.
There we go.
Number 3.
Number 3.
What's this mean?
Will let go of them if they're not like a really high. Then the slaves will let go of them on their own free will because they can't afford to keep them.
So you're gonna tax the slave owners. So they can still have them.
Yeah, but if we put a really high tax.
The only place you're
One
doing
part of
that
the
tax
study
is
do
on who?
not have slaves.
People who have slaves.
You're not doing on the Confederates, because what happens to the Confederates?
Skip on to number 3. Then we'll go to the non-Confederate.
The only ones you'll be doing that to is who?
Confederates.
These states that were still in the Union to stay loyal. All these slaves are already what?
Free.
So you're gonna tax these states?
Yeah, the ones that have slaves.
The people who have
It's like, yeah, I tax on slaves. So you have to, so eventually they'll
So you're gonna tax the people that stayed loyal to the Union.
only the ones that have
You not
slaves.
tax the
Only those who have slaves. They don't like taxes, so they'll say, okay, we'll get it.
Ewan,
Where are we at here?
you want to tax the crap out of a broken economy?
Yeah.
I have a white and I have for.
You really are.
Any ideas for
Um,
you can like yeah, to also so we have punishment and yeah. I don't have any
How
ideas.
much does it take to
Do
decide?
you guys have any ideas?
No.
I don't know.
How much does it take to decide?
You guys have any plans?
People are arguing.
For what?
Three people are arguing. 10 people are arguing. Majority.
Okay, I'll just get rid of this. Yeah, I'll just do that.
We can just talk about four. Rebuilding the South. How far
Like plans.
So, what I had in mind is all these lower soldiers, like allowed to just signed up, they would be part of it. But all these big Civil War leaders, like for instance, what's his face?
That's reuniting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tax the crap out of them.
So my leaders would hang because I was going to form execution and regular minor
You get
soldiers.
them together at a young age. How's that?
If you get like, if you get
Is this something you guys are talking over, or you're just writing it your own?
I actually told them it's like if you get an old dog and an old cat, they'll get aggressive to each other. So if you get a kitten and a puppy and put them together, eventually they'll be friends. So if you put them together at a young age, when they used to be
What about the
around.
older? What about the older? Keeping them separate?
And they just
Keeping them separate?
we keep them separate.
So you're doing segregation?
And only until the young ones get older and
They're in what age?
Around, that's not old, 75.
What age are you gonna segregate? What age aren't you gonna segregate?
20 and under.
20 and under, we're not going to segregate.
But those are
So if you're over 20, you're gonna be segregated.
no, if you're over 50, you're gonna get that word.
She watches it.
Yeah.
I think everybody
Segregated.
watched that.
Yeah.
You know, all the blacks over there.
So when I was like,
But then the young kids get together, and then they'll get used to each other.
yeah.
And then eventually we can.
And then you can let them
You
go.
gotta be specific.
No,
What-
we can let them go and then
What's the age?
and then let them go.
Okay, so like over 50, yeah, and then under 50 would be like partying, like
Segregate, like above 20.
Yeah, I love 20.
yes, even though it's not even.
I have oh yeah, Ben 10. I do not find
Red 10.
But that's what I'm talking about, not Ben 10.
That's a cartoon though. I've watched Red 10 before, but like, but Avatar is not
To get supplies.
Railroads, bridges, and roads.
the two sisters, and he has the two sisters.
Alright, reuniting the southern states.
What do you like? What can you do?
I call it the map.
Reuniting the southern states. So how would we
War.
Reuniting.
We just had a war.
Reuniting.
say that they got Israel and the United States. You're gonna
Oh, is that?
Make them go.
Where you guys at?
Southern state. You still haven't figured out anything for race relations. That's gonna be a tough one.
What about Confederates? What's gonna happen to them?
So regular low-ranking ones will be pardoned. Well, high-ranking ones will either be hung or
I think I put that here, so that it makes it look like we put more things. Yeah.
What determines?
Okay, so number one, let's go over them.
What determines
Okay,
being
number
hung? What
one,
determines
make
prison?
the slaves, we're gonna make an amendment
What rank?
on, say, no slavery.
general and
Number
above.
two, ease them together.
General
Okay,
and
what's that?
above.
What are we gonna do after that plan?
You
Make an
have
amendment
another
is,
time today that I
make
can
an amendment for no slaves.
How are we gonna do that?
I have no idea.
How are we gonna make it fair?
We'll go to the
place where they get done. I'm president.
I have a crap out
Mark is gonna move fifth grade to this time block as well. So the only 120 to 150, you have an opening, but the kids have
I
merit.
would have any.
I made as an in.
You'd have to have
Are they just gonna
half of their population,
Oh yeah, then what do I do?
or their
I only realized it now, but you see that
just be the
joint
leaders of their towns put aside contract. Reuniting them, that's saying, when you reunite and you come back to the state,
That way they'll still get their.
we will lend you money to rebuild your economy.
Do that today. Yeah, tell them.
So number four, what was, I'm at number two, sorry.
Number two is ease together at ages 5 to 20, and to make people who's 20 older until these people.
Like a volunteer plan.
Yeah, that's actually, yeah, we'll call it that.
What are we gonna like share this?
Mashed potato plans.
It's okay, our mashed potatoes can win.
That was called something.
Can I share the mashed potato plan? Sure. Number two. Number two. Number three.
Take them to court.
Oh, take them to court. Watch
I don't know, you just guys said to take them to court, make an amendment. With the amendment of slavery was already number one. So please just take them to court.
Lily, I'm gonna go watch that video and screenshot and screen record it, and I'll send it to you.
Building the South. How do we read it?
Okay, you win. Okay.
There you go. Okay, then number four is
Take them to court for what?
Okay, let's stop. I'm asking you to do in a very short time what it took them, what?
8 million years.
We said this started when?
12 years.
1866.
12 years.
How long did it go?
1877. So it's going to be, so make an amendment saying no slaves. And if you break that amendment, you
Until
have to pay out
until 1890.
Yes.
Number four is make them vote. And then
But
I think I actually did and raised taxes for number four. Take them to court. The Confederates is just take them to court.
Okay, so
And the Confederates, it's like number four there.
okay, God is good all the time.
Yeah.
Look up here. So, many of you pass an amendment. This is probably the easiest. You pass an amendment, they're free. But immediately, okay, once these southern states got back in as states, if you didn't put any requirements on how they got back in, then the people that are going to take leadership positions in those states are going to be who?
slave owners.
Slave owners and former Confederates, okay? Unless you put restrictions that didn't allow former Confederates to serve in the government. So, if they're going to rule, if the legislature is going to be set up, they're going to pass legislatures that favor who? Them. Which is against who? Slaves. And that's what happened originally. So when Lincoln let them get back in really quick, these states came back in, and then those states began to pass laws that actually kept blacks in slavery. How did they do that? By these were called black codes that you will read about. Black codes were a way, again, to limit the power of the freed blacks. So they segregated them. Segregation became what segregation? Okay, keeping blacks separate from whites. What does that do for race relations? It continues the cycle of. Then they passed laws that said, okay, if you don't have a job, you can be arrested and put in jail. Now, most of the blacks, what was their job before? They were worked on a plantation as farmers. You think these farmers are going to hire them, pay them a wage? Possibly some of them, but some might not, just to spite. Okay? So this black, basically all he knows how to do is farm. He doesn't have any land to farm on. So that means he's going to be without what? A job. And if your state has a law that says if you're don't have a job, you get arrested. Guess what the prisons in the South did? He went to jail in the South. You would have to work. So they would get arrested because they didn't have a job. They go to jail, and in jail they're forced to what? Work. So it's just like being what?
Slaves.
It's just like being a slave again. A lot of you didn't get into this last one, which is probably one of the most difficult. Because this is going to take what?
A while.
This is going to take billions of dollars. We read about it. Okay? Are you with me, writer? Doesn't look like it. Where's that money come from? If I'm a northerner, and they tell me the government's going to put more taxes on you so they can what? So they can rebuild the South. What am I going to think?
Not gonna like that.
I'm not going to like that because, especially if I was a soldier, I had just fought. I probably lost friends and family members. And they're going to tax me more so they can rebuild the South. Am I going to support that? And again, politicians, they're all about winning support of the people, right? So a politician's worried about his job. So if I represent Minnesota, and I'm a politician, I want to make sure that Minnesota people are what? Happy. So I don't want to pass laws that are going to make them unhappy, because then I might what? I'll lose my job. This was probably the most difficult. Because then he said, well, let's make the South pay for it. Why doesn't that work?
They already passed the law that the South wants to do anything. It's not worth it.
No, we already read about the destruction that was in the South. Did they have lots of money to pay for rebuilding? They have virtually no money. They've lost all this capital investment money they had. So, needless to say, the task was really what? It was really impossible. Because we said, you don't change this by passing a law. Even though they said, okay, we'll pass a law, all the slaves are free. You could say they're free, but they were still treated like what? Slaves. By the majority of the Southerners. because that's how they always were in their minds. So you don't just pass a law and change somebody's whole mindset of how they treat people. So Congress wasn't happy with this quick. Congress, the radical Republicans, because guess what party was the party of the South?
Democratic.
The Democrats. These radical Republicans didn't want these southern states to get back in and then have them former Confederate leaders that are challenging their control of Congress. So basically, we had two reconstructions that happened. The first one happened really quickly, where each state came in, and that's what your first reading was that you read about. And then this is the second, where Congress took over. What did they do? They set up military districts. Basically, what you had is what is called martial law. We had this a little bit in Minneapolis over the summer. What's martial law? Martial law means the military's in charge. People's normal rights that they have, what happens? So if I went out of my house at 8:30 this past summer, what could happen to me? I could be arrested. Why? They set a curfew. They had martial law in Minneapolis saying the curfew, and if you break this curfew, you can be arrested. So that's what they did here in the South. They divided the South up into 5 military districts. Each of these was governed by a general of the military. Of who? The North. Is this leniency? No, this is harsh punishment. They're punishing the South, saying, when you can do the things that we want you to do, then what? We'll let you back in. If you don't do the things we want you to, then you're going to stay under military control. That means you had to have papers if you went out. So if you went out during the day, you had to have certain papers that said you had a right to be out where you're supposed to be. So we're experiencing a little bit more of that in terms of our government control right now, right? So normally, could somebody tell me I have to wear a mask? The government's controlling that right now. Normally, would we do that? Okay, we wouldn't do that normally. If you want to go visit your grandparents, can you do that now? Not if they're in a nursing home. So we have a type of that going on right now. What we don't have is that the military is not controlling that, right? That's what they did in the South, though. The military took control. So that's why it took all these years, and that's why today, which we still haven't figured out which one. That's why I had martial law in Minneapolis, right? It's all about what? Right? It's all about race relations. We're still struggling with it today. Relationship between races. Particularly now it's police versus, but, so we're dealing with still some of the same things. And we're definitely dealing with the conflict between the parties. Well, they had the same thing during Reconstruction. And it's all about, what's it about? Why are parties struggling for power? Because what's the goal of a political party? Okay? Their goal is to control. They want to control the government, and how do they control the government? How's a political party control the government? We just had one on last Tuesday. By having an election. You win elections is how you control the government. So if I have more in my party than they do, then what? Then I have control. And then I can get what I want done. What's that called when a party gets what they want? That's their what? Platform. So here's the platform of the Republican Party. The platform in Reconstruction is what? All based on let's punish the South. Let's get them in how? Do they want to bring them in fast? Do the Republicans want to bring them in fast?
No.
No, because the southern states are all controlled by what party?
Democratic.
The Democratic Party. That's why for many years after Reconstruction happened, the South tended to vote always one party. Guess what party? Democrat. Against because of what the radical Republicans did to the South during Reconstruction. It's not that way today. I mean, the Republican Party won many of the southern states today. But for many years, they voted that way. That's how much Reconstruction was a hard part of our history. And we haven't solved some of those problems. You see, there's no easy solutions, and you guys don't even have the opinions, because you didn't fight in the Civil War. So if you fought in the Civil War and you saw your brothers and sisters die, or your father die, would you have a different view of how you'd want to approach the South? Okay? If you were a Southerner that always had slaves, would you have a different view? See, we don't have those views. But even that, with not those views, you can see this task is what? It's almost impossible. And that's what we're going to go through and see what they did. Okay? How far? What time does this class go to? 10:40 or 10:50?
We have 10:40.
10:40. Okay, so here's, you're going to read about this. We should look at the questions on the page. There too, but you want to hit off there?
Yeah.
Can you get over there? I need to close some of them other things off.